Welcome to the Introverted Doctor podcast, the podcast that uncovers myths, mistakes, and misconceptions that hold healthcare professionals back from living their best life at work, home, and play. I'm Dr. Lalit Chawla, and in this episode, I'm going to talk about the physical space and where I work, and similar to how you can use the same ideas to where you work. Now, this is a podcast, and like all my other podcasts, you can also find the visuals on YouTube. So this may be more beneficial if you watch it on the YouTube, or just go to theintroverteddoctor.com and you can see it uploaded there. But I will try to make this as descriptive as possible, so if you are listening to it, it'll make sense, and hopefully you'll understand the key points that I'm talking about. Now, the reason I'm doing this podcast is that over the years when teaching medical students, residents, and even some doctors have asked me, what are some tips that you can use, that you can give us to make sure that we're working in the best environment. And over the years, as working as a doctor and certainly as a medical student and doing locums when I first started in my career, I've worked in different clinics and different examination rooms, and there are some that work, but some, surprising, actually many that do not work. And they really miss out on some key fundamentals. And that's what I'm going to share with you about how you can make sure that you're optimizing your clinical workspace. So come on into the exam room. And so this exam room is about 11 by 10 feet. And when I'm walking in, you'll see literally on the right side is the counter space of where it is. And then right opposite, because it's a square exam room, right opposite to it is the clinical bed, the examination bed, what have you, and the rest of it. And that's it. It's a very tiny, very compact exam room like most people have in their clinical setting. Now, if you look at this space, there's just one counter, and that's the way the builders set it up. And that happens a lot. So they'll just come in a room, they'll put a counter, they think, okay, here you go, you're all set. And they don't know what a doctor or clinician needs in a clinical setting. But this doesn't work well, because what happens is usually how it's designed is the computer is supposed to be up here, you're supposed to sit here, and the patient is supposed to sit over there. So a lot of the conversations are happening with your back against the patient, and you're really not picking up everything that needs to be picked up. And nobody wants to be talking to somebody else's back. And the other thing is, you as a clinician, you're going to find it hard, because you need to use the computer screen. If it was here, you're looking up clinical information, you're looking up, like labs, x-rays, etc. So some of the key things I'm going to share with you are based on the work done by Mark Bowden when he talks about body language and physical space. And those are fundamental in making a better experience for the patient and for yourself. Basically, two little tiny tables here. This is a desk, and these are stand-up desks. So I can have it go up or down with just one little push of a button, and everything goes up. That makes it easier, because if you're just sitting all day, you're going to be fatigued and tired. Sitting is really like the new smoking. And as clinicians, we spend so much time sitting, and it's actually unhealthy for you. So having stand-up desks are a great investment and something that you should do. It's set up in such a way that computer screen is here, and I can talk to the patient who'd be sitting right in front of me, right like that. So we're able to talk. One of the biggest things, this comes from what the work Mark Bowden has done. And if you want to know more, we actually interviewed him on the 5th episode of the podcast, and he has some great gems. And one of the key things he has taught is that you do not put a desk or a barrier in front of you, because if you do that, you don't develop trust and connection the way you do if you don't have that barrier. when I was at a conference at which he was speaking at, he showed how the way a person perceives that information changes once you put a desk, and the way they perceive it is significantly, poor compared to when you remove that desk. Because what happens is there's a lack of trust by having something blocking between you and the patient. So by removing that barrier and having the desk off to the side, it allows you to connect with the patient easier. The second thing is, and the real benefit of having this type of arrangement where you're basically setting it up as a triangular shape, is that I can easily turn my screen and show the patient any clinical information that I want, and confidential information, say if I had day sheet up or something, it would also protect me from not inadvertently revealing information or about another patient. So this protects me that way. If I happen to step out, nobody has easy access to it. The other amazing thing about having this type of setup is that when a patient has a challenge, a problem, a situation, there's a lot of emotion attached to that event or their personal scenario. So by me talking this way and saying, can we talk about what's going on in your life, and we just put it down on paper here. So that's where we're able to basically objectify the situation. And that helps the patient come to terms and understand what's going on in their life, what are solutions that they can make just by simply putting that problem not with them, but over here. The other thing, there is a safety issue in terms of when you set your clinic set up like this. If you were to ever come or feel that there's something that you were just feeling unsafe, you have an easy exit out that way. You're not blocked by a desk or something. A lot of people end up putting a desk right here in front, so the patient will come in and the patient sitting between them and the door. And fortunately, you don't really, most of the time, things have been good, but you never know when you need to defend yourself in terms of exiting the situation, and you need to remove yourself from the room very quickly. Because we do know of scenarios where a patient may be having a psychotic episode or violent or angry, and you want to protect yourself, so you want to be cautious of that. So making sure you have a good access to the door is really key. The other thing I want to share with you is, now, one is mostly everywhere we go, we have electronic medical records. So we have we have everything on computers. Now, most of the time, this is not my main clinic office where I sit, but I will have two screens. And having two monitors at work and at home increases your efficiency tremendously. If you do not have two monitors, I really recommend it. In this case, I don't, because I opted out just because for the standing up desk, I'm just not going to be doing that. But generally speaking, two monitors are absolutely key. I just use the two monitors in a different exam room where I keep other personal things there. Here's something else. Here's a nice little tip. Something I've tried really recently. I actually have these noise cancellation headsets that I will wear just because there's a bit of ambient noise, and I'll put it on, obviously not when the patient is here. That's never good. That was a joke. But you want to put, if you like to work in peace and quiet, this with a simple switch of a button cancels out the ambient noise. And this was something that a good friend of mine, Will Brown, introduced me to. He's a respiratory therapist. And I'll wear them when I'm reviewing labs, x-rays, doing paperwork, where it's just me and the computer. So that is absolutely wonderful. You can get it from Amazon, less than $100, and it's well worth the investment. I like to work it quiet. I just find I get the work done quicker. I'm not listening, and yet it's loud enough that I could hear somebody. It doesn't block if somebody's trying to knock on the door, or I can hear the phone. So it's not, you're not dead silent. It's also good when you're traveling. They really work great. Now, here's the other tip. I have like a 6x4 cork board. I really recommend having a big cork board. I actually have 3 at home in my home office, because this is where you can put stuff that you can put your calendar, you can put quotes to help keep you uplifted. It also is something for patients to think about. And you can also put clinical information that you can give to patients. So having a big cork board is here. Sometimes having information that you will need access to is wonderful. I also have a wall clock up here. This allows me to keep track of time, and also to help keep myself in check in terms of patient flow and information. So without me blatantly checking my watch and looking rude. So it just shows respect to not only, good time management is good for you, it's good for the patient and the patient's waiting. I think so often when patients end up waiting too long, sometimes there is medical emergencies that happen that does back up, but enough times I really believe that it's just the physician just not booking things accordingly, or making just scheduling the day properly. So that's why a clock over there is helpful. The other thing is, in this room, which we don't have, is a window. I would have loved to have a window. The last 11 years, where in the previous clinic I was working at, I had beautiful windows, and that just makes your day that much better. Because when you're inside, you're it's like in solitary confinement. So I have to be more conscious of getting out, getting some fresh air. Lunchtime, I'm always out getting some fresh air, just getting out, because we can be so confined in this little room the entire time that we don't have a sense of daylight or fresh air. So if you can get a window, that is absolutely essential and wonderful. Obviously, protecting patient privacy is there and important. The other thing is, when we can get so stuck in a room like this, and especially if you're introverted and you're quiet, or if you're just so focused in the work that you're doing, you can end up staying here the entire day, never really interact with any other colleagues. So what I really recommend is making sure you take the time to step out, talk to your receptionist, talk to your nurse, and making those little breaks, because those little breaks will just make you feel better. So many people say they work in a team setting. That maybe just lip service, but the real question is, how many people are really interacting like a team? And it doesn't take the big things to make teams work well. It's just the small little moments of time you take to connect with the other people with your staff. So you have to schedule that. So as you can see, the clinic is the clinical office is very simple. The biggest problem I see is, and I've heard this from patients too, is that the way their desk is set up, and that their back is towards the doctor, and the doctor's typing on the computer, they're not paying attention. That's the other big thing. And here's the other thing, I didn't mention this, but I'm glad I thought of it. Most clinical exam rooms have those little small rolling stools. And, I just don't find them very comfortable. You might find it comfortable, it might give you a good core workout to stay there, but I always found they just slip around and, I'm always falling off of them. So I just bought, 11 years ago, I bought a $300 office chair. I was not going to buy a $300 office chair. But, I was talking to my brother, and he's a doctor, and he's in London. And he said, you know what, Lalit, buy yourself a good chair. You're going to be sitting more on that chair than any other chair, even in your house. And this is a really comfortable chair. So I don't get fatigued. So make sure you invest the money. I mean, that was $300 11 years ago. The best $300 I spent on a chair. And it still works great and reasonable. So just remember, it's the little things that you do that make a big difference. Think about your workspace, because the energy that you need to sustain your health is really dependent on small things. So focus on that. I'd love to hear any suggestions you have that makes your clinical space work better. What are some key tips and tricks that you use to make sure things flow well for you? I hope this podcast served you. This certainly will answer some key questions that some physicians have asked me. And I really think those are the key messages I wanted to share with you today. And I'd love to hear from you, and I hope this podcast serves you. And please share with others who you think might benefit from this. And have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week on another episode of the Introverted Doctor podcast. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week.